Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. You know, you guys have really sent in some really interesting stuff this time around.
Yeah.
We've got AI, robotics, global power shifts, a secret mission. Sounds like we're about ready to write a movie script here. So, what's the mission for this deep dive? What are we hoping to get out of all this material that listeners sent in?
Well, you know what's really fascinating to me about these sources is how much they kind of blend fiction with reality. I mean, it's like they're taking our present-day anxieties about AI and kind of projecting them forward into this future where they become, a very real threat.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so let's set the stage.
Okay.
We've got this fictional audio drama called 2036G.
Yes.
In this world, we meet three brilliant minds, Jason, Jaxon, and Jamal.
Okay.
And they're working for the Trump administration.
Okay.
And they get this top secret assignment from the DIA about, you guessed it, an AI robotics revolution. Have you had a chance to actually listen to this audio drama yet?
I have, yeah. It's a pretty wild ride, but it really does raise some thought-provoking questions about, what happens when machines actually start outsmarting humans?
Okay, so it goes even beyond, machines just getting smarter. There's a whole geopolitical power struggle woven in.
Yeah.
Right? There's this threat of a global reset. And it seems like it's all orchestrated by, they don't name names, but it's definitely implied that China's involved. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Especially that focus on China.
Well, I mean, we can't ignore the real world context here.
Right.
I mean, China is a rising power in tech, especially when it comes to AI. So whether the creators of this series meant to do it or not, they're kind of tapping into this, this very real concern, right? Could a nation achieve global dominance through AI? And if so, what would that even look like?
The world has just seen the launch of the first ever biological computer, a groundbreaking invention that combines human brain cells with silicon hardware to create a completely new kind of AI. This incredible technology, called the CL1, was developed by the Australian company Cortical Labs and is set to change the future of artificial intelligence. Unlike regular AI systems, the CL1 is more flexible, learns faster, uses less energy, and is far more efficient than anything available today. This new technology, known as synthetic biological intelligence, was officially introduced in Barcelona on March 2, 2025.
So in the story, Jason, Jaxon, and Jamal get handed this classified information about this AI robotics revolution. And their mission is to decode this information.
Okay.
And then get this, they have to prepare 60,000 people.
60,000.
60,000 people for this AI-powered future. And they have to do all of this within 18 months. So they're literally racing against the clock to prevent this global reset in 2030.
That's a tight deadline.
It's a very tight deadline.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. You also sent us information about a real-world organization called the Leadership Institute for Excellence.
Yeah.
And they're also aiming to equip 60,000 people with AI certification. Granted, it's over a 3-year period, but it's almost too perfect of a parallel, right?
It is a crazy coincidence, isn't it? But, it really highlights that, this whole idea of AI literacy is not just something out of science fiction. I mean, the Leadership Institute actually states that we're on the verge of this huge so-called $15.7 trillion AI industry.
Wow.
Which means AI skills are going to be in high demand. But it also, begs the question, who benefits from all of this?
Right.
And, who might get left behind?
So in the 2036G story, it's like this training is positioned as a way to fight back against this really specific threat.
Right.
But in the real world, are we actually getting people ready for a world where AI is calling all the shots? Or are we just trying to create a workforce to, keep this industry growing?
Yeah.
It's a really good question, and one that I think is worth digging into a little deeper. But before we do that, why don't we dive into Season 3, Episode 2 of The Invisible Protectors? Because that's where I think things start to get really interesting.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so in this episode, our three protagonists are tasked with being invisible protection for the Trump administration. They're essentially bodyguards, but it goes way beyond that. They have to identify and neutralize any and all threats. So pretty high stakes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But right away, they run into a problem. How do they communicate securely in a world where every single digital footprint can be traced? It's a challenge we all kind of face to some extent, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It's like every email, every text, every phone call could be monitored.
Right.
And that's not even getting into all the data that's collected about us just from browsing the web.
Exactly. So thankfully, Jaxon, who is basically like a tech wizard,
Yeah.
he swoops in and develops this untraceable messaging app. Problem solved. No, maybe not so fast.
No, I mean, as the episode goes on, Jason, he gets this really mysterious code, and it kind of hints at a bigger conspiracy, something that might tie back to the whole AI revolution.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those classic cliffhangers that, makes you want to immediately hit play on the next episode.
Yeah. But before we do that, and before we unlock the secrets of this mysterious code, let's take a pause here. Think about how the fictional story and that real-world push for AI literacy are kind of mirroring each other.
Yeah.
Are we, as a society, really prepared for a future where AI is, kind of the dominant force? And what steps should we be taking to navigate all of this? We're going to come back to these questions in part 2 of our deep dive, so make sure to stick around.
I'm ready.
All right. And we are back for part 2 of the deep dive. Hopefully you've had a few minutes to think about those questions we left you with, because things are about to get a whole lot more interesting as we decode this whole AI-powered future.
Yeah, for sure. Before we move on to the next episode of 2036G, I think it's worth going back to that idea of a global reset for a second. It keeps coming up over and over again in the series, and I think it's something that deserves a little more attention.
Yeah, okay, well, let's break it down. So in the series, they're basically suggesting that this AI revolution could lead to a complete reshuffling of power on a global scale.
Alpha is a humanoid robot unlike anything we've seen before. Built by Clone Robotics, this machine is designed with synthetic organs, artificial muscles, and a structure that mirrors human anatomy down to the smallest detail. This isn't just about creating a robot that looks like us. It's about replicating how the human body works. The company is now accepting pre-orders for the first 279 units of Clone Alpha, marking a significant step in their journey to bring lifelike robotics into homes and workplaces. What makes Clone Alpha stand out is its biomimetic design, which is a fancy way of saying it's built to imitate biological systems. Instead of using traditional motors and actuators, Clone Robotics has developed synthetic versions of human organ systems. For instance, the robot has a polymer skeleton that mimics the 206 bones in the human body, complete with articulated joints and artificial ligaments. These features give it an incredible range of motion. Its upper body alone has 164 points of articulation, with each hand, wrist, and elbow combination offering 26 degrees of freedom. That kind of flexibility is rare even in advanced robotics. The real game changer here is the muscular system. Clone Robotics developed something called myofiber technology, which uses artificial muscles that contract with water pressure. These muscles are soft and lightweight, yet powerful. A single muscle fiber, weighing just 3 grams, can generate a kilogram of force and contract 30% of its length in under 50 milliseconds. This allows Clone Alpha to move in ways that are fluid and lifelike, a sharp contrast to the rigid, mechanical motions of traditional robots. Powering this muscle system is a compact hydraulic pump that functions much like a human heart. It circulates fluid through the robot's vascular system, delivering the pressure needed for muscle contractions. The pump is remarkably efficient, operating at 500 watts while delivering 40 liters per minute of hydraulic fluid at 100 psi. To manage this system, Clone Robotics designs
It's about how we want AI to be developed and used. It's about being able to separate fact from fiction,
Right.
to identify biases, and to advocate for responsible AI development.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say someone's listening to this right now and they're thinking, okay, I get it, AI is moving really fast and I don't want to be left in the dust, but where do I even start? What advice would you give them? How do they become more AI literate?
Well, first things first, don't get bogged down by all the technical jargon. There are so many resources out there that explain AI in simple terms. Start with some introductory articles or videos. There are even podcasts that cover this stuff.
Nicely done, slipping in that little plug.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. Finding those reliable sources of information is so important. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Talk to other people who are interested in AI.
Right.
Social media, online forums, you can even just chat with your friends and family about it. There are tons of ways to learn and connect with others who are kind of on this journey with you.
So really it all boils down to curiosity, being willing to learn and adapt as AI technology keeps developing.
Exactly. Continuous learning is absolutely essential in the world of AI. But you know what? I'm kind of eager to dive back into 2036G now to see how those fictional heroes are tackling their challenge. Are you ready to move on to Episode 2, Decoding Destiny?
Let's do it. This is where they finally try to crack that mysterious code that Jason got, and I have a feeling things are going to get pretty intense. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We are on the last part of our journey into this world of AI, robotics, and this potential global reset that keeps popping up in the fictional material.
And as we dig into this final episode of 2036G, I think it's important to keep in mind that even though this is just a story, it's reflecting some very real concerns that a lot of people have about the future.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's jump right into Episode 2, Decoding Destiny. This is where Jason, Jaxon, and Jamal are totally focused on cracking this mysterious code. They know that it holds the key to understanding this AI revolution, and they're running out of time. But here's where things take an interesting turn. They actually reach out to Elon Musk for help.
Oh, wow. It's interesting that they bring Elon Musk into the story, isn't it? Because in the real world, he's always been pretty vocal about the potential dangers of AI. He's always talking about responsible development and regulation. So this episode kind of plays on that real-world image. They make him out to be someone who has the technical knowledge and the vision to understand what this code really means.
Yeah. And it turns out Musk is already working on this. His team has uncovered this massive fraud within the U.S. government, and it seems like it might be connected to this AI revolution somehow. Now, they don't go into the details of the fraud in the episode, but it does make you think, who's really calling the shots? Are governments even capable of dealing with something as complex as AI, or are there other forces at work here?
Yeah, I think the episode leaves us wondering about that, It suggests that the lines between governments, corporations, and individuals are becoming more and more blurred, especially when it comes to this race for AI dominance. And it's interesting because that reflects what we see in the real world today. Tech companies are gaining so much power and influence, and they often operate across borders.
Right. And, speaking of blurring lines, this is where things get crazy in the episode. So with Musk's help, Jason, Jaxon, and Jamal, they finally crack the code. And what they find is shocking. They confirm that China is the one leading this AI revolution, and that their goal is to dominate the world by 2030. And they plan to do this by using 6G technology and advanced robotics.
We talked about this a bit earlier, but it's worth mentioning again. Whether a country could actually achieve global dominance through AI by 2030 is kind of up for debate. But the fear is definitely real, and that's what this story is playing on. Right? It forces us to think about what could happen if we end up in an AI arms race where countries are just trying to get ahead of each other without really considering the ethical implications or the potential for things to go wrong.
So what happens next? Well, our heroes are now faced with this huge task of recruiting and training 60,000 people in AI to fight back against this threat. And they have to do it quickly. But even if they somehow manage to do this, it makes you wonder, is specialized training really enough to deal with this AI-powered future?
That's where that idea of AI literacy becomes so important. Remember how we talked about the need for more than just technical skills? We need a broader understanding of how AI will affect us ethically, socially, and politically. And this episode really drives that point home. It shows that just creating a bunch of AI experts isn't enough. We need to equip everyone with the critical thinking skills they'll need to navigate this AI-driven world.
So if we take a step back from this fictional story for a minute, what are the key takeaways that we can apply to our own lives? We've got these anxieties about AI and this potential for global power shifts and this need for AI literacy. So where do we even begin to address all of this?
I think awareness is the first step. We need to engage with different sources of information, whether it's articles, documentaries, or even fictional stories like 2036G. We need to ask questions, challenge what we think we know, and really think critically about the information we're getting.
So it's all about staying informed, right? And not letting fear take over, but instead using that fear as motivation to have these conversations and take action.
Exactly. AI isn't some far-off threat. It's already shaping our lives. And the more we understand it, the better prepared we'll be to deal with its complexities and make sure it's used to benefit humanity.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of AI, robotics, and this potential global reset.
Yeah.
But of course, the conversation doesn't have to stop here. We encourage you to keep exploring these topics.
Yeah.
Challenge your own assumptions and be an active part of shaping the future of AI.
Remember, the future isn't set in stone. It's something that we create through the choices we make and the actions we take.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.